Okay, so far we have discussed about the BCS ground state. We calculated the ground state energy and so on and so forth. So let us first quickly recapitulate those ideas before we get into the calculation of excitations over the BCS ground state. So in our previous calculation, we really considered this kind of a reduced Hamiltonian where we modeled V kk primed as minus V for k and k prime lying very close to the Fermi surface. And by very close, I really mean that these k and k primed are lying within an energy shell just on top of the Fermi sphere or just below the Fermi sphere, the width of which is nearly of the order of h cross omega d, where omega d is the Debye frequency. Because we are really assigning this interaction, attractive interaction, to the electron phonon coupling between the in the system, and since there is an electron phonon coupling, the phonon energy scale becomes important in this business, and therefore we have to take care of this energy restriction for these k prime wave vectors. So we impose this restriction that these k and k prime wave vectors, which are important for this pairing fluctuation, will lie within a window of width h cross omega d around the Fermi surface. Okay, so to study this ground state of the BCS Hamiltonian, we started with a variational wave function which looks like this, where uk was the probability amplitude that the state k up and k minus k down are vacant, and vk is the probability amplitude that this k up and minus k down are simultaneously occupied. Okay, so with this variational ground state wave function, we calculated the ground state energy that looked like this. We have been able to calculate the ground state energy in terms of these pairing amplitudes UKs and VKs. Okay, epsilon k is the single particle energy as it appeared in the original Hamiltonian. Okay. Now, when we tried to minimize this energy for the superconducting state, then we had to obey the condition that the average number of particles was held constant. You can really see that the BCS ground state that we have written over here as a trial wave function does not really care about the conservation of number of particles explicitly. It does not correspond to a fixed number of particles. However, in a real system, you must have a constant number of particles. So, you just try to impose this condition as a restriction on this minimization procedure of energy, that the average number of particles is held constant. So this is the quantity that you have to make constant, retain as constant while minimizing this energy value. And in the process, we obtain the BCS ground state energy to be like this by minimizing this value E0. We obtain this, where we define the suitable gap parameter over there, delta, and this delta really appears in this expression. Ek in this expression is really square root of xi k square plus delta square, where xi k is the single particle energy measured from the chemical potential. Okay, so these are the things that we have learned. This Lagrange multiplier mu is really the chemical potential, and at t equal to 0, this is the Fermi energy of the normal metal state. And also we could find out the value expression for UKs and VKs. So these are simply like this. And the superconducting gap delta K, which turned out to be independent of K according to BCS proposition, was given by this formula. And from here we found that this is going to be the condition. Okay. And when this h cross omega d is much less than mu, we have to consider this, because we are really considering a weak coupling, and epsilon k are restricted within this energy shell that we have just mentioned a little earlier. For the weak coupling superconductors, this quantity is very small, and as a result of this, we can find that the superconducting gap is changing in an exponential manner. So that tells us that even if I have got a very small value of attractive interaction V, I will be having a non-zero value of this delta, and there will be a superconducting state. Now we also just found that the gain in the ground state energy which is the difference between the superconducting and normal phase, are given by this expression. And in the weak coupling limit, there is a small negative number that really tells you that the superconducting phase is lower in energy compared to the normal metal phase, as long as delta is non-zero, or in other words, V is non-zero. So superconducting phase will set in at t equal to 0. This is really in agreement with Cooper's proposition that a slightest amount of attractive interaction will settle down to superconducting pairing. Okay. Now, let us calculate the energy required to break a pair. So far, we have been talking about the ground state where the states are paired. Now, if I want to break a pair, remember, if a Cooper pair is being scattered from a state k up to k up minus k down to k prime up minus k prime down, then the center of momentum is conserved. Okay, so there is no net momentum transfer from the system of these bound electrons, pair of bound electrons, to the lattice or vice versa. So this is really a momentum conserving procedure, and therefore this does not really take care of the fact that a pair is really breaking down. We are not breaking a pair, we are making a pair scatter from one k minus k state to another k prime minus k prime state. So that was that kind of a scattering which was allowed by BCS interaction, is not really a pair breaking interaction. But if by some means I can manage to break a pair, then what will happen? That's our present question. So all the electrons are paired in the ground state. Okay, this is true if the number of electrons is even. But if the number of electrons is not even, a single electron will stay in the system which is unpaired. Rest of the electrons will be pairing like, say, k up minus k down in this manner, and one electron will stay unpaired with its momentum k1 and spin, say, up. Okay, its corresponding tentative partner state minus k up down is now empty. If it were there, if this partner state were present there, then at t equal to 0, this electron will also pair with its partner. It would have paired up with its partner. But now, because the odd number of electrons, a single electron is a lone electron that roams around in this momentum state. Okay. So, in the energy, this kind of a pair state will not make any contribution to the pairing term in the energy. Therefore, the energy of this system, that means this even number of electrons distributed in Cooper pairs and a single electron in this state, will be something like this. We call this energy as E1. This is simply twice of this, okay, where k excludes this wave vector k1. Then there is a single electron at k1, therefore its single particle energy psi k1 will be there. Of course, we are measuring again the energy from the chemical potential, so it is psi k1, and also this pairing term where k and k prime cannot be equal to k1. So k1 is excluded from this summation. You can rewrite this expression of energy. See, first of all, you just remove this restriction. You allow for all values of k. So it's an unrestricted sum. And then to make out this compensation, you have to introduce a term of minus twice psi k1 vk1 square. So these terms together with this will make out these two terms. So I just drop off this extra term to make a correction to this. First term is unrestricted sum, and then there is this corresponding correction term for compensation. Similarly, I make this pairing term to be unrestricted. I remove this restriction. So there is this unrestricted sum, and to compensate this, I have to subtract this object from here, where once k can be equal to k1 and k prime can be equal to k1. Therefore, there will be two such contributions. Therefore, there is a factor of 2 here. So this is going to be the expression for energy, this equation number 2. Is it clear to everybody up till now?
এখানে ফার্স্ট টার্মটাতে একটা 2,
হ্যাঁ, ফার্স্ট টার্মটা কি করে 2 এলো? এইখানে দেখো এটা এই দুইটা তো ছিল এক্সপ্রেশনে, বলো।
সেকেন্ড লাইনটাতে মানে ইকুয়েশন 2টাতে ফার্স্ট টার্মের সঙ্গে ওই দুইটা থাকবে তো স্যার?
এইখানে হ্যাঁ এখানে থাকবে থাকবে ঠিক সরি থ্যাংক ইউ এখানে 2 factor is there I missed it definitely there is a factor of 2 হ্যাঁ okay anything else
তাই k1 টা আরেকটা
হ্যাঁ xi k1 টা হচ্ছে the single particle energy of the single electron put in this momentum state measured from the chemical potential so it is epsilon k1 minus mu this one. This is the kinetic energy of the single particle that you put in this state K1. When you are going to calculate the total energy, this is going to be the energy for the paired state and the single particle in the K state, K1 state will contribute this much of kinetic energy. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. So we arrive at this equation 2. Remember there is a factor of 2 dropping that Pranati has, perhaps Pranati has pointed out it. Okay? Correctly. So this factor is there. Now I can calculate E1. Now I know that this one together with this factor of 2 and this term they combine to give me this E0s, the ground state energy of the superconducting state. Okay, plus this correction terms, this one and this one. Okay, now I have used this expression that this delta K is given by this. Okay, so that makes this, actually there is a minus sign in front of VKK prime, so that makes it this plus sign, so it is twice delta K1 UK1 VK1. Now I know that twice UK1 VK, twice UK VK is given by this expression and 1 minus 2 VK square is given by this expression. So if I put them back over there, I really get this expression E0s plus xi K1 square plus delta K1 square over EK1. So after a simplification, this is simply written like this E0s plus EK1, where EK1 is square root of this thing. Okay. Now definitely the energy EK1 is larger than the ground state energy. Sorry, this energy E1 is larger than the ground state energy E0s, superconducting ground state energy E0s by an amount EK1. Okay. Now the minimum value of EK1 is delta if xi K1 is equal to 0. So the minimum value of this quantity is delta. Therefore, the quantity E1 will exceed this E0s at least by an amount delta. Okay. So this situation where you have an one extra electron in an unpaired state will have an energy excess than the corresponding superconducting state where this extra electron is not there by an amount delta. Is it clear to everybody? Could you follow this argument? If this extra electron were not there, then the system would have been completely superconducting and the ground state energy would be this. In presence of this extra electron, the energy is E1, which is slightly higher by this amount. The minimum amount by which this can be higher than E0s is simply delta, because the minimum value of EK1 is delta, that corresponds to xi is equal to 0. Xi at K1 is equal to 0. Therefore, I understand that there is a gap delta in the spectrum. Actually, if one makes a realistic estimate, then one finds that the value of delta is of the order of milli-electron volt. Okay, so just above the ground state, there is a gap in the energy excitation spectrum. If you have a superconducting state where all electrons are paired, that's the ground state of the superconductor. Now, if you try to inject a single electron in the system, thereby making a single particle excitation, you cannot do this by increasing the energy of the system by an infinitesimal amount. Okay, so that really tells you that the single particle excitation spectrum has got a gap of the size delta. At least you have to increase the energy by an amount delta so that the system can accept one extra unpaired electron. Contrary to this, consider the normal metal. In a normal metal, at t equal to 0, we know all the states are filled up to the chemical potential or the Fermi energy. Now, if you allow the system to absorb one extra electron, then it will just redistribute, resettle the value of the chemical potential a little bit, and thereby it will absorb this electron, and by this process the energy of the system will increase by an infinitesimal amount, because there is a state infinitesimally adjacent to the previous chemical potential which was vacant. So this extra electron can be accommodated over there. So in a normal metal, at t equal to 0, you can always add up an extra electron without any cost of finite amount of energy. But contrary to this, in case of a superconductor where all the electrons are paired up at t equal to 0, you can add an extra single electron just by considering a finite amount of energy, the minimum value of which is equal to delta. So you say that there is a gap in the spectrum delta. That's why this name gap parameter. Okay? Is it clear to everybody? This point, that there is a gap in the single particle excitation energy.
স্যার EK1 এর মিনিমাম ভ্যালুটা ডেল্টা
কি করে হলো? হ্যাঁ, দেখো EK1 এর ভ্যালুটা কোনটা? EK1 হচ্ছে এই জিনিসটা, দুটো পারফেক্ট স্কোয়ার টার্ম আছে, তার মধ্যে এই জিনিসটা মিনিমাম হতে পারে 0,
হ্যাঁ স্যার ঠিক আছে
তাহলে ডেল্টা হবে। Okay. Now, when I put a single electron in a orbital state, say with wave vector k1 with say spin up, that really prohibits the pairing term. Okay, that is, in the Hamiltonian there is a pairing term that always search for suitable partners and make them paired by the corresponding VKK prime interaction. And if this pairing is done, then it reduces the energy of the system a little bit. So putting a single electron in the system, you are really prohibiting this pairing term to reduce the energy of this system. Okay, so that's why there is a slight increase in the energy. If you put a partner in the system, then the pairing term will be responsible to bring down this thing to a paired state, and it will further reduce the energy by this amount. Okay, so if I put a single electron, there will be an increase in energy. Now let us consider a slightly more complicated case. Instead of a single unpaired electron, I consider two unpaired electrons in the system. Okay, so there was one electron in this k1 up state. Now I consider a second electron in the state say k2, and let me consider the spin is say up. Okay, and this will block another paired state of this one to contribute to the pairing energy. What I mean to say, that if I put one single electron over here and another single electron over there, then pairing between k1 and minus k1 is prohibited, and pairing between k2 and minus k2 is also prohibited. So I am losing further contribution to the pairing energy term. So I expect that the energy will be slightly more higher. Now let us see how much will be that energy. Okay, so since this energy E2 of the system of two unpaired electrons, it will be slightly greater than the previous one, I can see easily that it will be exceeding this value E0s at least by 2 delta. Do you follow this argument? Sorry, just see the argument. First of all, I put one electron in this state, thereby the system increased its energy by EK1, the minimum value of which was delta. If I put a second electron in this state, further it will lose this probability of pairing, and therefore there will be a lesser contribution to the pairing energy, and therefore as a result of this there will be increase in the system of energy of the system. And how much? The minimum value by which this energy will be increasing will again be delta, something like this. Okay, the analysis that we adopted for this electron can be simply carried out for this electron as well, and we will have an extra amount of energy EK2 whose minimum value will be again delta. So if I have one electron in this state and another electron in this state, the resulting system will have an energy E2, which will be certainly higher than the corresponding superconducting ground state. So here I am considering a system of n plus 2 particles. N particles, n being an even number, n particles evenly distributed among all paired states, among the Cooper pairs. And there are 2 electrons which are unpaired. This system will have an energy excess to the superconducting ground state energy for the n particle system. And this energy E2 energy corresponding to these 2 single particle states above the superconducting state will be exceeding the superconducting energy by an amount at least by 2 delta. It will be greater than equal to 2 delta. So the minimum energy that I require to break a pair of electrons, because if I break a pair of electrons in the superconducting ground state, I will be having a resulting state in which rest of the n minus 2 electrons are paired and 2 electrons are unpaired. And we have just seen that if I have 2 unpaired electrons together with all paired other electrons being paired, then the energy cost will be at least 2 delta. Okay, so minimum energy required to break a pair of electrons from the superconducting ground state will be 2 delta. Could you follow this argument? How does it come? For each single electron, I have to cost at minimum of delta amount of energy. That's the energy required for single particle excitation. If I have another electron in an unpaired state, then I will be having extra amount of energy, the minimum value which will again be delta. So at least I have to excite or give an excitation by a magnitude of 2 delta when I will be getting a pair breaking off, tear off. Okay, is it clear? এটা কি সবাই বুঝতে পারলে? Okay, so if I give by some means, if I supply this amount of energy to delta, where delta is the gap parameter of the superconductor, then I will be eventually able to break up one Cooper pair. Experimentally, such a minimal excitation to break a Cooper pair can be achieved by just shining a radiation of appropriate frequency omega, so that H cross omega is equal to 2 delta. H cross omega greater than equal to 2 delta. If I shine this amount of radiation on this system, the system will absorb this energy, break a pair and excite 2 single electrons above the superconducting condensate. So the corresponding frequency, this frequency, because I know that this delta has got magnitude of 10 to the minus 3 to 10 to the minus 4 electron volt. So this corresponding frequency, if you estimate it, it will be in the infrared region of the spectrum. So just by shining infrared radiation, you can achieve this thing. Now the value of delta can be estimated experimentally from the tunneling experiments. For example, Gievert tunneling, which we will study in our next class. So using tunneling experiments where a single electron is allowed to tunnel from the normal state to the superconducting state across a normal superconducting interface. So in this experiment, you just prepare a superconducting normal interface. One slab is normal, the other slab is superconducting. So you maintain a boundary between this normal and superconducting interface by some trick, and then you can allow, by applying a bias, you can extract one electron from the normal phase to get into the superconducting side. So when it gets into the superconducting side, naturally this energy of this superconducting side gets excited by this amount delta, at least by an amount delta. So from this experiment, just by measuring the energy cost, you will be able to calculate delta. We will see in our next class, when we will be talking about Gievert tunneling, that how this can be achieved. Okay, so tunneling experiments are tools for measuring these microscopic parameters. Now let us see why a superconductor becomes a perfect conductor. Okay, a perfect conductivity means that if you apply an electric field, the electrons will get accelerated. It will acquire a drift velocity, and by the process of traversing through the lattice, it will encounter electron phonon interaction. It will get scattered off by the lattice, and the result of this, the momentum that it gained from the external electric field will be partially lost to the crystal. Okay, so it will give forth some of its momentum to the crystal because of this collision. Okay, so this loss of momentum due to this collision between the lattice and the electron really is responsible for the resistance of a metal. Okay, now in the superconducting state, let us see what happens. If I have a current carrying pair, here I will not be talking about single electrons, I will be talking about pairs, because pairs will be responsible for carrying current in this case. So I consider one typical Cooper pair with momentum k and minus k and spins up and down. When I apply an electric field, both of them will acquire some drift momentum, okay, because that is due to the electric field. So the momentum in the direction of the field, it will be, say, some finite wave vector. Then the wave vector of this first one will be k plus q by 2. I assume that the finite momentum acquired in the direction of the electric field is q by 2. So it will be k plus q by 2, and this one is minus k plus q by 2, so that the pair overall gains a momentum q. Okay, so because of the electric field, the pair, the basic entity here, charge carrying entity, the pair acquires a momentum small q. Of course, when I say momentum, I really mean it is h cross q, but I really mean that I am measuring the momentum in units of q, h cross, therefore I say simply q. So between the two partners, it will be shared by q by 2 and q by 2. Okay, so these will be the momenta of the two pairs. So the total drift momentum is h cross q due to this pair. Now, if you have to change this situation, then you have to break the pair. Okay, so that if there is a scattering of one electron from k to k prime, that is not compensated by another pair by being scattered from minus k to minus k prime. Okay, so you see there are two things. When this pair is traversing through the lattice, if this BCS, this Cooper pair gets scattered from a state k to k prime because of electron phonon interaction, then its partner will pick up the momentum minus k prime. Okay, so again the sum total of the momentum will be h cross q. Okay, so apart from this h cross q, the center of momentum will not be shifted. But if by some means I can break this pair, then if I scatter this electron from k to k prime, there is no guarantee that this will scatter in a compensatory manner from minus k to minus k prime. And in that case, I will have a net loss of momentum h cross k prime over k, and that is not being compensated by the partner itself. However, therefore in that case, I will find some loss of momentum, and that will appear in the resistance of the sample. So there will be this viscous interaction. But unless and until I am able to break the pair, the scattering will be in a compensatory manner. If this goes to k prime, this will go to minus k prime, so that the sum total of the drift momentum will ever remain h cross q. So there is no question of resistance. But if I can break the pair, then the question of appearance of a resistance will come in. However, the energy required to break this pair, let us make an estimate for this. First of all, let us make an estimate how an external electric field, which is typically of the order of, say, volt per centimeter, ordinary electric fields, how much energy that it gives to the system of the electrons. If I consider an electron which is close to the Fermi surface, then the electric field can give an amount of energy which is E times Vf times tau, where tau is the relaxation time, and the order of the relaxation time is 10 to the power minus 13 seconds. And if you estimate this object for an electric field of the order of volt per centimeter, you will find that the energy delivered by this electric field over a time scale of the relaxation time is typically of the order of microvolt. On the other hand, I have seen that the energy required to break a pair is 2 delta, and it is already found to be in the regime of millivolt. So, by an ordinary electric field, you cannot really supply this much amount of energy to which is enabled to break the pair. Therefore, under the application of a small electric field, the pairs do not break, and therefore there is a non-dissipative electrical transport, and that results in perfect conductivity. Could you understand this point?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, we will be talking about the BCS superconductors at finite temperature. But before that, please allow me for a 1 minute break. Just a minute. I will take water and come back. Okay. So let us resume. So far we have seen that using a variational wave function, we can estimate the BCS ground state energy. It is found to be lesser than the corresponding normal state energy at t equal to 0. Therefore, at t equal to 0, the state will always be superconducting if there is an attractive interaction, pairing interaction that results in a finite value of the gap parameter delta. Also, we found that if I want to make a single particle excitation over the BCS ground state at t equal to 0, I will require an amount of energy delta. And if I have to break a pair in the over the BCS ground state, from the BCS ground state, then I will require at least an amount of energy 2 delta. This gap parameter delta can be measured by, as we have said, by the tunneling experiments, and the typical size of this value of delta is of the order of milli electron volt, and therefore if you think of this perfect conductivity, that can be completely explicable. If you apply an electric field, then it gives an amount of energy which is of the order of few micro electron volt. I think there is a typo, it will be micro electron volt, and here it is milli electron volt. Okay, so please make these corrections because this is not of the dimension of energy. Micro electron volt and milli electron volt. So the ordinary electric field will be delivering an amount of energy which is much less than the energy required to break the pair. Therefore, since the pair is not breaking, the scattering of the electrons from electrons in a Cooper pair will always be done in a compensatory manner. Okay, so the net momentum loss will be 0, and therefore you will be having perfect conductivity. So this is the situation as far as t equal to 0 is concerned. Now we are going to look into the case where we are considering the case of finite temperature. When you take the BCS superconductor at finite temperature, there will be excitations over the ground state, and these quasi-particles that are being excited over the ground state could be studied using a transformation known as the Bogoliubov-Valatin transformation. Okay, when I consider a normal metal, the excitations at finite temperature above the Fermi surface are the single electrons. Okay, the single electrons from below the Fermi surface just creeps through the Fermi surface to the unoccupied state. But the BCS ground state is a typical peculiar ground state where you require a finite amount of energy to excite a single particle and twice delta amount of energy to break a pair. So this kind of a ground state, when we are talking of excitations due to finite temperature over this ground state, are not like single electrons. These are some complicated combinations of paired and unpaired states. So these are known as quasi-particles, and sometimes they are known as Bogoliub ones, after the name of Bogoliubov, who was responsible for devising this kind of transformation. So we are not going into the mathematical details of Bogoliubov-Valentin transformation, and if one performs this transformation, and also one has to be very careful about the fact that whenever one calculates some sort of average, thermal average of thermodynamic quantities, one must incorporate the corresponding Fermi-Dirac function with proper temperature factor. I mean, you should not use the Fermi-Dirac distribution function as a step function, because you are no more dealing with that zero temperature case. So you have to appropriately insert the Fermi-Dirac distribution function to calculate the averages. So if you do these tricks, then you will be able to calculate the finite temperature excitations, and we are omitting the calculations, just giving the results for the sake of completeness. It is found that the quasi-particles that are being excited over the ground state will have an energy which is dependent on temperature, and this is given by this, okay, where the gap parameter delta now becomes a function of temperature. Okay, the superconducting gap parameter becomes a function of temperature, and it's a function, complicated looking function like this, where there is a tan hyperbolic appearing over there. Now when BCS choose this thing, this really results in that delta k will again be independent of k. So it is delta t over here. Here it will be also delta t. Okay, so one can really solve this equation self-consistently to find the variation of delta t with temperature. Okay, so if one finds the variation of delta t with temperature, then one really finds a typical plot like this, something like this. This goes to 0 at t equal to Tc. Okay, and also one finds that the value of delta at t equal to 0 is related to the value of Tc by this simple linear equation. Okay, so these are the findings of the from the finite temperature equations, and also one can find that this kBTc is of the of nearly equal to 1.13 times h cross omega d times this exponential. Okay, so from this I really find out that delta 0 is this value. This is really a universal result, and it is found to be more or less in good agreement with all the weak coupling superconductors. Okay, this is a result valid for weak coupling only, and for all weak coupling superconductors this result is very valid. Only there is a slight variation from material to material. This is simply because of the fact that we have used a very simplified interaction, V kk prime is equal to minus V, that we have washed out any k dependence over there. So because of this simplification, I must have to pay some price, and the price is that this equation that we have found out over here is applicable for all material, all weak coupling materials, but with some little variations. Okay, this is not an exact equality, but it is approximately equal. So this is because of the simplified nature of the BCS interaction. One interesting fact is that the Debye frequency is proportional to 1 by root m, where m is the atomic mass. Therefore, from this formula, I can easily see that the Tc must be proportional to 1 by root m. Okay, so heavier the mass, the smaller is Tc. this is some phenomenon that we already noticed earlier and called it the isotope effect. Actually, this isotope effect was one of the key factors by virtue of which people were able to identify that the essential mechanism which is responsible for BCS type of superconductivity is the electron phonon interaction. Okay, now we find that the BCS result is really giving back this isotope effect. And this variation of delta T with T can be approximated close to TC by this form. Sorry,
কথাটা হাতে বসে গেছে ভাই
হ্যালো, আরেকবার বলো, শুনতে পাচ্ছি না, আরেকবার বলো, কেউ কিছু বলছো? হ্যালো হ্যালো হ্যালো, এম আই অডিবল? শোনা যাচ্ছে আমাকে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার, অভিকের বোধহয় মাইক্রোফোনটা অন হয়ে গেছিল।
ও ও ও ওকে 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 ফাইন, no problem. So this variation of delta with T that one can find numerically can now be analytically studied near TC. Okay, if one do that, then people can find that delta variation of delta T near TC will be given by this kind of a formula. Okay, so this part of the curve can be fitted with this kind of a variation. Okay, so these are the major findings from the finite temperature calculation of BCS theory. So the most interesting fact is that we could relate the TC with the zero temperature gap parameter. Therefore, the larger is the gap parameter, is larger will be the value of TC, and this is the situation which is valid for all weak coupling materials. However, there are materials which are known as the so-called strong coupling material, for which this approximation rho 0 times V much less than 1 is not a valid approximation, and for that this kind of an equation cannot be used to find the TC. So to study the behavior of the strong coupling equation, the BCS theory has to be suitably modified, and such a modification was done by Macmillan, but that discussion is completely beyond our present scope of study. Okay? So we leave this point here, indicating the major features and outcomes of the BCS superconductivity. And in our next class, we will talk about some special experimental techniques known as the tunneling experiments, and we will see how these tunneling experiments enable us to determine parameters of a microscopic parameters of a superconductor. So that we will take up in our next class. Okay, so that's all for today's class. Let me put off the recording because that will reduce the file size. So let me stop recording.